Adam Peters is the founder of the Strategic Veteran Platform and the Strategic Veteran Podcast. Adam shares his journey from enlisting in the Army at 17, through multiple deployments and injuries, leading to a medical retirement, to overcoming personal struggles like alcoholism and depression. He speaks candidly about the difficulties of transitioning back to civilian life, eventually finding his true calling in entrepreneurship and community service. In this episode, Adam discusses the vital support system he's built for veterans through the Strategic Veteran Community and his innovative mobile app, which offers an immediate lifeline for veterans and first responders in crisis. The app connects them directly with licensed mental health professionals and fellow veterans, providing critical support and aftercare. Adam's story is one of resilience, vulnerability, and unwavering commitment to helping others navigate their paths to fulfillment. Stay tuned to learn how he's making a difference, empowering veterans to transition successfully and rediscover their purpose through entrepreneurship and community engagement. Join us as we delve into Adam Peters' inspiring journey and the incredible work that he's doing to uplift the veteran community. As always, if you find value from this content, please like and subscribe. Now here's my conversation with Adam Peters. Enjoy. Everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Gulas, and this week, my guest is the founder of the Strategic Veteran Platform and the Strategic Veteran Podcast, Adam Peters. Welcome, Adam.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. If you could, for everyone, can you just tell us what the Strategic Veteran is and how you came to start it?
Yeah, man. So the Strategic Veteran is kind of, I guess, my personal brand, if you will. From that, it turned into a podcast and then a community for veterans centered around, entrepreneurship, really, but also just the antithesis of Facebook groups because they're toxic places and I hate them. I really wanted to create a place where veterans could come and talk about what they're going through in their transition woes, be vulnerable, get actionable advice and support from the community. So that's kind of what the Strategic Veteran is. It's just my personal brand and kind of my mission to stop the 22 a day.
Okay, excellent. Lot to unpack there. And so you have history in the military, and then post military civilian life. You had quite a journey, which ultimately led you to becoming an entrepreneur yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. So I joined the Army in June of 2003, about a month really after I graduated high school. I was delayed entry for a year, so I guess technically I joined at 17. From there, went to basic training, went to Fort Stewart, and then started deploying, where I would be deployed every other year for my entire career. So I did 4 total, 3 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan as an infantryman, and then ended up having a couple of surgeries after the Afghanistan deployment that ended up getting me medically retired. Kind of destroyed my shoulder, my back, my feet, typical story. After the med board was initiated, I started falling into what I call the transition hole, that really deep, dark place that, I think we all attach our sense of self and our identities to our military service. And I didn't know, at 30 years old, how to be anything but an infantry guy and a soldier, right? So, I was a career guy. I had planned on being in for the 20. Unfortunately, that's not how it worked out for me. So, in the med board process, started drinking a lot. And then from there, kind of beat the alcoholism. But things still weren't quite right, man. And I would float around for the next 8 years before I really found out who I was, learned how to love and respect myself, and learned that I could live a life that really resonates with me, that involves me doing what I want to do, controlling my time, and really aligning with my core values and beliefs.
Okay. Wow. So you found your mission and purpose in civilian life through entrepreneurship. And,
Yes, sir.
like you said, you went through deep, dark place, and going in so young, as so many soldiers do, right? Like you said, your whole sense of identity for so long was tied to being in the military. Like, what talk about what the struggle's like for so many people, because like you said, right, when you're coming out and that's all you've known and you've planned to be in there so long and now you're out and you have to figure it out. I mean, what's that like?
Oh man, um, it's it's different. It's very, so the military is a very structured, regimented. You always know what you're doing. Somebody's always telling you what to do. You don't really have to be a real adult, if you will, right? Like you're not really making a ton of life altering decisions, if you will, while you're in the military because somebody else above you is making those decisions for you, right? And it from all the way up at the top to all the way down at the lowest private, somebody is controlling that. There's always a mission. And so you think it's going to be cool when you get out. I remember being excited to get my DD 214 and not having to go do PT anymore every day at 6 o'clock in the morning and not having to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the 5:30 leaders meeting every morning. And that all goes away overnight. And oh, by the way, all of the people that you've surrounded yourself with by default, because you're part of a team and an organization where you're supposed to be close like that, well, that all disappears too. Like the minute that you're getting out, the Army doesn't really care about you anymore. You're just a number to them, and it becomes very apparent. And so I think that's problem number one is that we all attach ourselves, like we're super important to the military based on the accolades and the things that we've done and where we've been and what kind of leader we are and all of that. And then you get, put into the med board process or you start to retire or you decide that you're just going to ETS and they don't care about you anymore. And so now all of those people that are your friends, quote unquote, they still have a mission to do. They still have a team to build, right? They've got to fill your slot. And so, oh, by the way, they're also working the same hours that you used to be working that you're no longer working. So now you don't have that group of people to lean on to share what you're going through with, to have conversations with. And if you were in a situation like I was, where you ended up making a bunch of civilian friends, well, they're also in full time jobs. So now you're just this 30-year-old retiree, if you will, quote unquote, who has no idea what direction in life to go. You don't know what you're interested in. You don't know what resonates with you. You just know what the transition program told you, and that's how to write a resume, to use your GI Bill, get a degree, and go find a career. Well, that doesn't really resonate with a lot of us because I, for one, joined because I knew I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to get a degree. I just wanted to go straight to work. But I don't really have useful skills, or I didn't think that I had useful skills for the civilian world because as an infantryman, like, what is your primary job? Well, the manual says to close with and destroy the enemy, right? So it means kicking doors in and shooting people in the face, really. Like, you can't put that on a resume in civilian life and expect to get a good job. So now you're just in this weird spot where you have no purpose or direction or team anymore. Any friends that you have are already working their civilian jobs. You don't know what resonates with you in college. So, like, my example is I thought it was my dream to go to flight school. It was really cool. I went to flight school. I'm a commercial pilot. I got all the licenses, got the t-shirt, but I really figured out that it's starting over essentially from the bottom because there's only a couple of ways to get into the career field of being a professional pilot. And that's being competitive and applying for low time jobs like pipeline patrol, aerial survey, wildfire, patrol, that kind of stuff. But the aviation industry is a really small industry. So the only way you get those jobs is really to know somebody or to have a big network and be connected within that industry. And the other route is to become an instructor, where now you're dependent on students for a paycheck. You're only getting paid for flight time at most of these flight schools. And you're going to go out and you're going to fly in this little box in the sky called a practice area. You're going to do this for 8 hours a day, and you're going to do the same lesson with 4 or 5 different students every day. And so, that was just hell for me. That was like not something that I was interested in doing. So from there, I moved on to while I was in college getting my bachelor's degree, I managed a gun store, and that was really cool because I like guns and I like all that fun stuff, and I got to learn a lot. But what I really got to learn was how business works and that I was actually good at business. And I had made this particular gun store quite a bit of money over the time that I was there, to the point where I was there 7 days a week and the owner wasn't showing up anymore. There was only one thing that the owner needed to do, and it's because I wasn't certified to do it, and that was Cerakote weapons. And we had, a whole arm of that business that was making a lot of money, and then all the sales, and we did a lot of stuff with custom builds and stuff like that. And I really got to learn the business side of things. And I kind of got fed up with making somebody else a lot of money and decided, it's my time to go explore what's out there. I got hooked up with the insurance industry, and I got hooked up with the wrong side of that industry. I started knocking doors selling final expense to the poorest third of Americans. 2020, 2021, people didn't even have bank accounts. I was driving them to the bank just to close a deal so they could open an account and I could draft premiums off their social security checks. And I found out really quick that, yeah, there's a lot of money in it, but also when you're selling that kind of product to that kind of market, a lot of it never stays on the books and you get charged back. And nobody ever taught me about chargebacks. And in chargebacks, nobody ever taught me about follow-up. So I got to go into an industry that is a pretty lucrative industry. I was doing well, and I didn't have all the information. So essentially, I was getting a 9-month advance that could be charged back to me anytime that person cancels that policy. So it was really like, I can't spend money for 9 months. And I hated it. I felt scummy. I felt like I was taking advantage of a population that has no business being taken advantage of. We should be out there helping them. And so I walked away from that and tried a bunch of different arms of the insurance industry, and none of it really resonated with me none of it really resonated with me. After I left the insurance industry, I decided, okay, I'm going to have to suck it up and I'm going to go get CFI done and I'll go work in the aviation industry. Well, there was a big gaffe with that. I needed to get some numbers so I could take a check ride. Ended up having to wait about 8 months for the FAA to send me snail mail that paperwork that I requested. And it really made me mad because they could have just put it on the website. It was only like 300 kilobytes of data that I needed. And I ended up waiting 6 or 8 months for that. And while I was out there, I took a job on a sod farm here in Florida, just mowing grass. And it was actually kind of one of the coolest jobs I've ever had in my life because it gave me the opportunity to sit with myself a lot. I had no responsibility. There wasn't really any oversight. It was $1,000 a week if you worked all the hours. And I got to listen to books and podcasts. And I came across several good books and podcasts that really started to change my mindset and let me seek out some, different modalities to, the healing journey. And I think at this time I was still pretty depressed. I was still in a really dark place. I used to wake up every day just kind of wondering, like, why am I here? What am I doing? I was ready to check out. And I knew going to the VA wasn't an option because I watched too many of my buddies get put on pills and turn into zombies, and it didn't help their situation. And if anything, I think a lot of times it exacerbates the situation. So I discovered a podcast, the Sean Ryan Show, and I latched onto that pretty hard. And he talked about his experience with plant medicine. And I started seeking out plant medicine as an alternative. And I got picked up by Heroic Hearts Project to go to Peru and do an ayahuasca journey for it was a 7-day retreat, 3 ayahuasca ceremonies. And I promised myself one thing, is that I would participate with an open mind in everything, even though I wasn't really an open-minded kind of person. I was pretty agnostic to all the holistic healing and the quote unquote woo-woo stuff, if you will. And I did that last July. I went down there and it completely changed my life, man. It taught me how to love and respect myself. It taught me how to trust my gut. It taught me that I can stop living for everyone else's expectations and live for my own expectations and whatever, I want to be doing in life. And when I came back from that, man, I really got to work hard on who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And I've kind of always known that I wanted to be a leader of soldiers. I didn't want to leave that when I left the Army. And so I found a way to do that. And now I get to be a leader for the veteran community in all of the work that I do with my company and the nonprofit, all because I kind of kept an open mind and went and learned an alternate healing modality, and it's been amazing, man. It's been really, really awesome.
Attention manufacturers and e-commerce sellers. Is fulfillment a headache for you? Whether you're fulfilling in-house and you know you need to outsource, or you're with another 3PL, you know you deserve better service. Easy DC 3PL can help. We offer personal service, fast response time, and we're flexible to meet your unique needs. Get in touch today and find out how we can help you. So last July, you go on the ayahuasca retreat, and when you came back, right, everything changed. You had this sense of, okay, and the sense of clarity in terms of about wanting to be a leader and help other soldiers. Can you talk about what your company and your nonprofit, the Strategic Veteran, does?
Yeah, so like I said, the Strategic Veteran really is just the personal brand. It's just kind of how I've branded myself. That came about from some random follower on LinkedIn in the comments, back and forth, when I was trying to figure out who I was going to be and what I was going to be, and they suggested the name, and I latched on to it. From there, I met with a couple of people who are further along in their journey and smarter than I am, who suggested, like, hey, you're not the type of guy who's going to get his message across sitting behind a keyboard. Have you thought about doing a podcast? And I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. So I took that advice and I ran with it. I met this person in April, and by May 1st, I had already set up the podcast, just dived right in with both feet, and released my first episode on May 1st. And so the podcast turned into really seeing a need for veterans to have a space where they can come and talk about these transition issues, talk about what does or doesn't resonate with them, and get like-minded people in the same place. And until I created my community, there are several others via LinkedIn that are out there. And then, of course, everybody knows about veteran Facebook groups. But I would encourage you to go spend some time in those veteran Facebook groups and ask a really poignant question that you need answers to, and see what happens. You're going to get ripped to shreds. You're going to be called an idiot, a moron. You're not going to get any help. And I think for me, I saw this as an opportunity to really make an impact on the veteran community by uplifting and working together and just sharing the knowledge that I have acquired through my journey with them to make their transitions easier, because we don't all have to suffer like that. There are lots and lots of things you can do to prepare yourself, i.e. networking, surrounding yourself with like-minded people or people who have been there, and really just understanding that what you're going through is not unique to you. Everybody has been through some version of that when they transition out of the military. And that's kind of how it was all born. Because of the podcast, I got hooked up with a company who wanted to sponsor the podcast called Gray Group Tactical, and Mark Messina is the CEO and co-founder of that company. He reached out through a mutual buddy that we both have, that we both served with together. Brought it to my attention, did a podcast episode with them on July 4th, where he told me about QRF Up and this nonprofit and what their mission is. Took a meeting with them, and then came on board as their recruiting director. And it's really my big passion project right now. Is the QRFup.org is a mobile application that you, as a veteran or first responder, can download onto your phone. Inside of the app is a big red button. That big red button, when you're having a hard time or in crisis, feeling like you want to put the gun in your mouth and pull the trigger, you can push this button and you'll immediately be connected with a licensed mental health care professional in your state. That mental health care professional has a couple of options. They will assess the situation, and they will determine if they can de-escalate on the phone. If that's the case, they'll spend the time on the phone with you, and they'll give you a time that you need to call them back after you hang up. And it's usually about 3 hours afterwards. If you miss that hard time, they will immediately dispatch a mobile crisis response team made up of fellow veterans and first responders to come to your location and check on you or de-escalate further if needed. If that therapist decides that they need help de-escalating, or that it's warranted to send out the mobile crisis response team in the very beginning, they will also do that. And So we launched a 25,000 app download in the state of Minnesota between middle to end of last year through March of this year. We had over 1,120 lives saved, and only about 5% of them needed to be further hospitalized or had criminal charges. And I think that one of the most exciting parts about the application is you, as the veteran or first responder in crisis, have the option to involve 911 and law enforcement. So now we're kind of taking a step out of that by sending brothers and sisters to your location to help de-escalate, because that's familiar, versus sending law enforcement who has a job to do, who has to assess threats, who doesn't necessarily understand what you may be going through, because not all of them do. It really just kind of helps mitigate some unnecessary criminal charges that come out of that because we can relate to them. In addition to that, we've partnered with quite a few other companies so that we're not just a de-escalation platform that kind of leaves you hanging after that. The partnerships are designed to help with aftercare. So anything from outdoor adventure therapy to plant medicines to getting you into counseling, not months later, but days later, financial assistance, housing assistance, job placement, all of these different things. And so as we roll this out and we get all the bugs worked out of it and the kinks and all that, as anybody knows with any kind of big project like this, we plan to open this up to at-risk teens and the LGBTQ community and other marginalized communities that are adversely affected by the suicide epidemic. And I really believe it's something that could change the face of mental health care for the entire country.
Wow. Amazing. All right. So like you said too, with over 1,100 lives saved and, very, very small amount of criminal charges, do you think the fact that veterans who know what it's like to be there and be in that dark place versus just, like you said, law enforcement, you think that makes all the difference in those situations?
I absolutely do, man. I think another thing that makes the difference is the fact that it's pretty private, right? Like having an application on your phone means you can go lock yourself in a room and push that button and have that conversation with a mental health care provider, and nobody ever has to know about it. Like part of why I think we as veterans struggle so much, at least in my opinion, I was in from 2003 to 2015. It was never okay to talk about the things that you were going through, the things that you had seen, the things that you were struggling with that you had done. That wasn't okay. That was seen as a sign of weakness, and it would end your career if you sought mental health help. I watched it end more than one person's career as I was coming up in the Army. So I think that's a big factor in that, spreading awareness about our app, also, spreading awareness about the fact that it's not weak to seek out help. It's actually, in fact, one of the most strong things that you can do as a human being is to understand that you're in this spot and it's okay to ask for help. And so I think all of those things matter. I know me personally, I respond better when a brother or sister who has been where I've been and done the things that I've done, can talk me off that ledge versus, a law enforcement first responder who doesn't necessarily, maybe didn't have military experience and doesn't understand what I'm going through, who really just sees by the book, I have to do my job and we're being called out here because this person's threatening to kill themselves and now we get to go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of ass backwards if you ask me, right? Like, we have someone who is struggling and we're going to take them to jail because they wanted to kill themselves. That's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we should get to the root of the problem. And I think that's what we're able to do because, veterans and former law enforcement people who volunteer to be on these response teams, they do have some kind of element of relation to that. They've probably been in a position like that. And who knows, some of them may have used the app themselves. It's not unheard of.
Okay. And being that you've worked with so many veterans and interviewed so many on your podcast too, like what do you think the biggest challenges that veterans have when they're coming home and transitioning to civilian life right now?
They don't have community. Network. A network is really the biggest thing. In almost 70 interviews I've done for my show, not nearly that many have been released yet, way ahead of the game, but That's probably the most common advice I hear is build your network. Start building your network from the day that you come in. And it's anything from what you might be interested in to people in that industry to, how do you, you know, I don't know. I like networking in that, like, I just like to put a bunch of people together that I know that I can go to for anything, really. If I need advice in anything, right? I just enjoy that so much. And so having community and people there to guide you and coach you along the way from your network, I think is probably the most important thing, because through that, you'll discover the things that resonate with you, the things that you're interested in, the things that really make you want to get out of bed in the morning and do this thing we call life.
Okay. And with the community that you're building, with the strategic veteran, and the different programs, like you mentioned with the nonprofit, um, can you talk about, because another pillar of yours is helping, uh, people that are transitioning to civilian life find purpose through entrepreneurship. Can you talk about how veterans are uniquely qualified to be entrepreneurs, and how you found that yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, man. From day one, when you join the military, you start acquiring what I call high leverage skills. Those look like leadership, problem solving, adaptability, discipline. The list goes on and on. And from day one, you're developing all of those skills. So it's a natural fit that if you can, get out of your own way long enough to take the chance on yourself, you can build something that requires all of those things. That's what business is. You need to be a good leader in order to put together a good team to scale what you're building. You need to be adaptable, because as we know in the business world, like, everything changes all the time. Nothing ever goes to plan. Problem solving, like, every day is a new challenge. And so for me, it just seems like a natural fit, because you're still doing basically the same things you were doing in the military. It's just you are the one creating the orders now. You are the one making the vision come to life. And, you know, how can that not resonate with you if it's yours and it's coming straight out of here and you're making it happen in the world? You know what I mean? So for me, there's no better path back to purpose than building something that is yours, that fills your cup, that makes you want to get out of bed every single day. That thing that you can work on from 7:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night, and it doesn't feel like work. You know what I mean? That's to me, why the path back to purpose is through entrepreneurship, and why we're uniquely qualified is because of all of those skills that you attained and grew and nurtured and developed over however long your career was. You automatically have a leg up.
Okay. And if people want to find out more about the strategic veteran, the programs you offer, check out your podcast, or just, reach out if they're hearing veterans are hearing this, they want to, get in touch with you and learn more. What's the best way they can do that?
thestrategicveteran.com. My website has everything you could ever want to know about what I've got going on, from the newsletter to the podcast to the community to the nonprofit work to anything else that I will ever probably do in this space. Will be found right there on the website. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm super active there. That's probably my biggest social media platform. So, reach out. I answer all my DMs and my comments. I don't have an assistant. I'm the real deal, man. I try to take care of everybody. Nobody left behind. I think that, we can all go a lot further in life if we help each other out instead of compete with one another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everybody. Um, all right. Excellent. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story and this great work you're doing. Excited to hear that. And we know, good things are going to continue to happen, when you're putting out this positive energy and helping so many other veterans. So, yeah, congrats on what you're doing. And we'll certainly promote this as much as we can as well.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here, man. And I really appreciate the opportunity to just spread my message. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.